know that you've been traveling literally the world raising money for your company, RIIG Technology, which I'd love to hear more about. But as far as this story is concerned, as somebody who knows more about January 6th than most, the idea, maybe you can speak to the mentality that somebody like Brian Fitzpatrick has in publicly crossing the president, knowing what happened that day, the idea of paying people with taxpayer dollars who attacked law enforcement and in many cases served jail time for it. Does it give you heartburn?
Oh, it's much more than heartburn. It's great to be back. I missed you guys. I think Brian is actually sane. I think that's the issue that you have, with other Republicans that are maybe for this weaponization fund. But there's a few things I want to point out. And obviously, you both can ask me any questions. I will answer them. First of all, the number $1.776 billion, 1776 being sort of the rallying cry for QAnon during the stolen election conspiracy theory. So when you're looking at the weaponization fund, I think people have heartburn for two reasons. I think those two reasons are that most of that money will go to Trump donors or recidivist criminals. And that's really what it comes down to, is that this fund is about codifying conspiracy theories. So when you look at, I started this warning, I feel like Cassandra, you're talking about August of 2020, Tom Malinowski and I first submitted the QAnon resolution about that violence could happen based on these type of conspiratorial, this conspiratorial thinking theories. And this downstream effect now is you have Donald Trump and the Welker interview, listening to that when you replayed it, it's sort of stunning. It's much more than heartburn. It's disgust. And it's also this impending fear that the same things we warned about in 2020 with violence in the elections in 2026 and 2028 could come to fruition based on this radicalization path that we're seeing. And I think we have to be very specific and blunt about what we're saying. It was almost disgusting to me to see people laugh it off or to try to diminish or sane wash what he's saying. What he's saying is that the election was stolen. It's going to be stolen again if he loses. And people that believe this become radicalized, that somehow they have to protect our Constitution by listening to a madman spout lies again. It's just a rehash. And I think that's what scares people. And lastly, I think that it's been institutionalized. You have institutional capture where there is no checks or balances on Trump's craziest thinking. And when you see people like Bill Pulte, Tulsi Gabbard before him, you see the real weaponization is what scares me.
Well, on your point on Bill Pulte, and I ask you this as a former intelligence officer, what's the greater risk, that you have an acting DNI who might be able to use intelligence against certain individuals who are perceived by the president to be enemies of his, or that because Pulte was tapped as acting DNI, FISA Section 702 doesn't get extended and goes dark after Friday?
Gosh, that's fantastic questions. As you know, I actually built FISA packages. I'm happy to talk about this, but I think there's a couple things here. When you have somebody like Bill Pulte, you already had, again, I said I felt like Cassandra, you already had a Trojan horse in Tulsi Gabbard. Bill Pulte continues that. You have somebody that has only ever told anybody what people want to hear. Intelligence, being ODNI, is about truth, facts, and data. When you have somebody like Bill Pulte, who was a Twitter influencer and really a Nepo baby, you have somebody like that that's in charge at 38 years old with no experience, and you have this active appointment for 210 days. What it is, it's an end run. It's an end run around the Senate. The Senate has to identify and choose somebody with significant national security expertise. It's almost as if our institutional credibility is a form of sovereign capital. And once you start giving away that capital and the trust in those institutions, we have a complete breakdown of not only our financial system, but any system of trust with our allies. And I think that's what scares me, right? Bill Pulte is so woefully underqualified. I mean, that would be like, honestly, a bit like asking me to dunk a basketball, right? It's never going to happen. So that's the issue that we have right now, is that we have people that are unqualified, sycophants, yes men and yes women, that are looking at foreign interference in elections that's going to be made up. And it just continues with that $1.76 billion fund, is that Bill Pulte can now make up foreign interference in elections that could affect some of the executive orders or things that Trump does in the 2026 and 2028 election.
Really remarkable. Institutional credibility is a form of sovereign capital. I'm going to have to think about that. Congressman, were you surprised by James Comer's response to the anti-weaponization fund? He seemed less concerned about FISA, but is clearly turned off here. The president has found the line, it seems, for many in his conference. It was January 6th that did it, huh?
Well, they have to, right? Listen, it's so cynical, right? And it's almost like a form of weaponized ignorance. When you talk about institutional credibility, you can't have it when facts and data point to something specifically as truth. And you have congressional representatives that are so worried about re-election or polling in their specific districts that they're willing to give up the truth and facts to the American people for their own hide. So they get invited to Mar-a-Lago, they get invited to parties. It's so, and when you look at Brian Fitzpatrick, right, and you look at the bravery of some of them saying this is ludicrous, it's beyond ludicrous. It's the self-dealing we've seen throughout the Trump administration. And again, I think we have to get to a point where adults are back in the room. But again, our institutional credibility is shot when people like James Comer do what they do.
And finally, Congressman, we just have a minute left here, but you obviously are now running in RIIG Technologies, an artificial intelligence company. And I wonder if you feel like this administration is doing enough to create guardrails around it, because you're focused on cyber specifically. How great is that threat? Are we doing enough about it?
Yeah, when you're looking at, I think people need to look at NSPM 11. I think that was just released on June 5th. It was a great question, by the way, and I've read NSPM 11. I think what's interesting is there's some good things there about AI, specifically with China. Now, I would argue we don't know that there's no guardrails for China, but I can actually argue that point that might be a good point. I think the issue that I have, and it's a great question, is that they're talking about ideological bias in that, and that people can be fired for that. And I think, again, we really have a community or an administration that has no guardrails themselves. I think that's what scares me.